The Heat hosted Victor Wembanyama on Sunday, but it was their bigs playing together for extended minutes that was the difference in a blowout win for Miami. We'll break down how Bam Adebayo and Kel'el work so well together in today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramill. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. And today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Now's the perfect time to join. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, no need to win to get that bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Have a great show for you today. We're going to be handing out credit cookies. We're going to look at a breakout game for a key role player, answer some rotation questions here in a bit. But first, David, it finally happened. We finally saw Kel'el and Bam Adebayo together for real minutes for the first time this season, a significant stretch. Midway through the second quarter, Bam goes to the scorer's table. Kel'el and Nikola Jovic are in there as the front court in that moment. And instead of kind of pointing at Ware, waving him off the court, Nikola Jovic makes his way to the bench. Kel'el is not moving. He's not leaving. He's not walking towards the bench. Bam is walking on the court. And every Heat fan at the same time was like, what's going on? Is this finally happening? And sure enough, 7 minutes into the second quarter, or 7 minutes left in the second quarter, Bam Adebayo and Kel'el stood there as Miami's front court in that moment. Erik Spoelstra goes there, the Heat trailing by 5 points, I believe, at that point. Really couldn't muster much of anything on either end. Couldn't stop Victor Wembanyama. Couldn't really find any flow offensively. And they go to that. They snap off a 14-2 run, take their first lead of the game, and then they don't trail again. They lead by as many as 27 points in this game, and they cruise to a win over San Antonio, break the 3-game losing streak, get back to a game over 500, much-needed jolt in this game against San Antonio. And I'm telling you, it's enough for me, having seen what that looked like. We're going to get into it here, but it's enough for me to declare that this should be the starting front court for the rest of the season. Are you there with me, David?
I'm not quite there. Like, I feel like it should still be performance, not matchup based. Like, I think there are games where it obviously benefits Miami to go with those bigs. And as much as I'm kind of leaning towards it, like I think it should be the norm 80 to 90% of the time. And the reasoning why is because, one, it's different. I think teams are caught off guard. We certainly saw San Antonio being caught off guard by it, but I think the rest of the league is still going to be taking their time until they actually see it in person and kind of deal with it, if they ever do, because at this point, the halfway point in the regular season, Miami's already played a couple teams twice that they won't meet again for a while. So I think it's going to benefit Miami, certainly, but I also still am a little leery of it being advantageous for the Heat in every matchup. And at the same time, I'm hearing a voice in my head say, who cares? It's a lost season pretty much. You're going to have to trade Jimmy. Who knows what's going to happen with that? It's going to be a mess for the next 41 games. Just do something different. Try and see what happens. And so that's why I'm kind of leaning 90% of the time, but I'd still see certain matches where it might be more of an advantage for Miami to go to a different lineup and maybe play a guy like Haywood Highsmith, who we'll talk a little bit later in his reduced role and what that might mean for the Heat moving forward, because I think you're still going to need Haywood, especially with his three-point shooting being what it was and his elite level perimeter defense. Like, those things are still going to be something that Miami is going to rely on. And I think he was benefiting from being in that starting lineup too. So it's going to be, every game you have to kind of look at it and say, you know what, we'll go with our bigs. This is what works. It's going to, it's necessarily going to be a strength for us. But there are other games where it might be, you know what, maybe we don't necessarily want to have two, 6'10" and 7-footer out there. It's not necessarily going to be what might lead to a victory. I don't know. That's kind of where I see it. I mean, you don't think that there's going to be certain matchups where it might be more of an advantage for Miami to go with a different lineup?
It could be, right? Like Portland on Tuesday, they don't really go with two bigs. Maybe there's a case to be made that, just go with Bam, and you're not really worried about any of Portland's centers. Go with Bam and Haywood and just kind of keep rolling with that lineup. But they lost 3 straight games. They were kind of going nowhere fast. and this team needed something. Now, the whole idea of this caught the Spurs by surprise. Like, this did remind me a little bit of whatever it was 10 years ago when the Dolphins like unveiled the Wildcat in like week 3 against the Patriots or what, early in the season. And the Patriots like, wait, what's going on? Ronnie Brown has the ball. Why is he under
You
center?
can do that?
And they just cruised to a win. And they won a bunch of games after that because teams didn't have a chance. But eventually teams figured out the Wildcat, and it wasn't the thing that the Dolphins hoped it would be, I guess, long term. But so there was a little bit of element of surprise here against San Antonio, and they were visibly frustrated by it. You could tell, and a little confused by it. Also, at the same time, a too big lineup is not necessarily the Wildcat. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's not doing something like there's a lot of teams in the league that do this, right? That they have the two starting, they have the two centers starting in the game. So you even look like Cleveland being the number 1 seed. But I like the Cavs. They don't care about matchup. They just say, like, this is who we are. This is our identity. And for a team that is so starved for an identity, I am a little hesitant to be like, we're going to switch it up based on matchup. I would prefer that this team find an identity, land on it, and say, to hell or high water, we're doing this. This is who we are, and we're going to force you to match up with us, because I think Kel'el was a leading scorer in this game. He was a plus 27 on the court. This guy has been good, not just tonight, but over the last couple of weeks, week and a half. He's been one of Miami's best players. He has been. And so put him out there. I think it helps Bam. I think you saw that right away. They go to that lineup, and you've got Kel'el guarding Victor Wembanyama. Immediately, Bam Adebayo slides over to Harrison Barnes. They actually had Bam guard Stephon Castle in the second half, which I thought it was a really interesting coaching adjustment by Spo, because Castle is a non-factor from beyond the arc. So you basically have Bam helping off of him and covering a lot of ground defensively. He had a help side block at one point in the game. You saw him in that second quarter, instead of being guarded by Victor Wembanyama, took Harrison Barnes into the paint, broke down San Antonio's defense, kicked it out to a wide open Kel'el from 3-point range. That's the future, baby. Like, that's what it is. And I would like to see them just sort of practice it, get more reps, lean into it, and make it a strength of theirs. Erik Spoelstra did talk about this after the game. Here's what he had to say.
So he can adjust easily. Offensively, look, we've been working on this, behind the scenes, just a little bit each day, just to get them ready, to feel comfortable, to be able to do it and be successful. We don't want to do things and it fails right away. They'll figure it out. Right now, like, defensively, that just looked like it was elite. So if I have to lean into this thing defensively right now for our team to get to another level, I will. And that could be a path. I mean, that we'll dive into this, but that looks like a path where we can find some higher success, at least on one side of the floor, and we'll figure it out on the other side, whatever.
So they go into this game 10th in defensive rating, 15th in offensive rating. In other words, not special on either end of the court. But as Erik Spoelstra, he used the word elite. We looked elite defensively. The Heat are elite at nothing. They're not elite at anything right now. So if you can get elite at one thing, I do think it's worth exploring it in a very meaningful way and leaning into it, like, to use Erik Spoelstra's verbiage there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've already seen it. The cat's out of the bag now. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't go to it more regularly. I don't know exactly in what ways and in what context over the course of an individual game that he'll use it. But yeah, I think this is going to be, at least, if not the norm, it'll be a heavy part of the rotation moving forward, going with Bam and Ware minutes, because I think it worked. Like, we saw it. Like, not only for getting them both going defensively, but also in terms of what it did for Duncan Robinson and Tyler Herro, and those shooters. They shot 70% in the third quarter when San Antonio was adjusting to what was happening with the Heat lineup. And a lot of that came from the 3-point range. Nikola Jovic had a big third quarter. Herro, Duncan. I think Duncan had struggled, but prior to that, and then once that lineup got going, it seemed like he'd reached another level. He was kind of talking smack a little bit, went in for a dunk. He was reignited. It was a fantastic thing to see. And Miami in general, they was just, I don't know, like, seeing the vibe from that team as they were kind of going with this new duo there, like, it changed completely. Like, after a 3-game lose streak and the drama of Jimmy and his return and everything else like that, it all seemed to shed away in that third quarter, when they just instantly looked like they were re-energized and kind of like they were waiting for it to happen. Like, everybody on the edge of their seats, it's like, this is what we've been waiting for. We wanted to see it. And when it worked as well and dominantly as it did, everybody was so excited for it. It was great to see.
It's a vibe shift. It led to credit cookies for the first time in more than 3 games. We're going to hand out the credit cookies after this. Obviously, Kel'el is going to be getting some of these.
Maybe.
Does Bam get some of these? I don't know. David and we've been disagreeing about these credit cookies lately. We'll see if we agree on anything after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get real money action while watching your favorite NBA stars than with Prize Picks. Whether you're a diehard fan or just love some friendly competition, Prize Picks makes it fun and easy to turn your basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Think LeBron's going to drop 30 points, or maybe Luka might be getting more than 8 assists? Well, Prize Picks lets you make your predictions and put your money where your mouth is in just 60 seconds. It's that easy. I've been using Prize Picks all season, and let me tell you, I'm having a blast. You can pick, somebody like, say, Jason Tatum. Maybe he goes for more than 29 points, or Anthony Edwards for more than 25 points. Maybe Tyler Herro. That's been a pretty good bet of lately that he'll go at least get almost 20 points. So if you want to take that kind of action, that's what I'm talking about. With Prize Picks' flex play option, even if one of your picks doesn't hit, you can still double your money. Plus, once you hit, you get your money fast. Sometimes as quick as 15 minutes. It's honestly the best way to keep the game exciting. And now is the perfect time to join. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. No need to win to get the bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Well, David, it's another Miami Heat win, which means it's time to hand out some credit cookies.
Cookie guy, cookie guy, cookie guy, cookie guy. Stack them high like a cookie chain. Sharing with friends, spreading the fame. Every bite, life's
been a while since we heard this one. Couple
Who's
games
got their
here,
hands in the cookie jar?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a while, so they're probably a little hungry. But I've got 3 credit cookies for Duncan Robinson. He was fantastic tonight. Like I said, a real difference maker. 8 of 12 overall from the floor, 5 of 7. He also had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, making things happen. It was plus 19 out on the floor, or he had 21 points. So he gets, where would I have it here? I had him at 3 credit cookies. Yes,
Duncan
3 credit cookies for him.
Dunked on Victor Wembanyama. This is not the first time. Nor is it okay, sort of, but whatever. He dunked in the
vicinity
while
of
Victor Wembanyama was around the rim ish. This is not the first time he's kind of gotten Wemby a little bit. Like, I guess what's the way to phrase it? It's not the first time that he's had a highlight while Victor Wembanyama was also in the frame of that highlight. He shook him out a couple of times last year in Wemby's rookie year. So I joked on Twitter, like, Duncan Robinson just continues to have Victor Wembanyama's number, man. So I love it. It's a matchup that he thrives in.
Yeah,
he likes the matchup. Duncan likes.
But it was great seeing Duncan because he's been struggling from 3 lately. They've just been doing a good job of kind of limiting his touches and shadowing him so well so that he couldn't get the kind of looks that he's used to. And while he doesn't require a lot of space, he needs to be in some kind of rhythm. He certainly found it today. He was energized. He was joking about, kind of looking around when he had that dunk, kind of feeling himself a little bit as well. You'd like to see that for him moving forward. So that was great. I've also got 1 credit cookie for everybody's favorite Heat player. That's Terry Rozier. 31 minutes, 7 of 14 from the floor, 4 of 5 from 3-point range for his 20 points. Big game for him, making it happen in a number of ways. I think, you need Terry to have moments like this. You're not going to get him all that consistently, but I think he was a real difference today to kind of help pile on, help Miami build that lead a little bit. He was a plus while he was out there. He was aggressive, making plays happen. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else you can say about it. He had the best game that he's had in a long time, if not the best game he's had all season. So it was a really solid outing.
Yep.
Okay, there we got 2 credit cookies for Tyler Herro. I think he was also good. Like a quiet game for him in that he really didn't show out much, but he had 18 points in the night, 7 of 12 overall, 2 of 4. He only played 33 minutes, but he also had 6 rebounds, 7 assists, and a steal. And it was strange because it just weren't going to him the same way they have. It was much more of a balanced, egalitarian offense. They need to kind of just feed the ball to Tyler, watch him go to work. We kind of jokingly said this after the Lakers game when he had that monster performance when he didn't get any kind of support whatsoever. You got to get Tyler some help. This is more of what that looks like. It was just much more balanced. It doesn't do much for his all-star campaign, perhaps, but I think there's enough of a a kind of a lead out there for him, where at least I think enough people have seen what he's capable of and what he's been able to do this season. And so I don't know how this is going to impact him moving
Well,
forward.
I don't know that it was a matter of them not going to Tyler Herro as much as San Antonio game planning to take him out. I mean, they had
Sure.
Stephon
They did a
Castle,
good
who is
job.
an awesome perimeter defender. Like, not even for a rookie. Like, he's already one of like the better sort of
Yeah.
Guys at guarding his own position out on the perimeter. They had him face guarding him. Like, they treated him literally like Steph. Like, that's how they guarded him in this game. And if you need any explanation for what it is that Tyler Herro has done and how other teams are respecting him and defending him now, just cue up the film of this game. That's it. Like, that's it, man. They had Castle, their premier perimeter defender, on his hip the entire game. Would not leave him. Literally face guarding him. You have one job. Don't let him get the ball. And that's what happened for most of this game. Eventually, he shook loose, ended up getting the points and things like that. But to go 18, 6, and 7 in this game, finding multiple ways to make the impact in this game, despite not, the 20-point per game scoring outing that we're getting used to from him, that's huge, man. Like, this to me is helpful for this all-star case. He could still do this and make an impact on the game, despite the other team doing whatever it is that they could to take him out of the game.
That's fair. That's fair. We didn't talk about it because we had all the Jimmy situation and the actual games to cover. But, JJ Redick's post-game comments comparing him to Steph Curry, what did you make of that? Because, I think it's indicative. Redick's always been a big fan of what Herro can do ever since his rookie season, and he had him on his podcast back in the day. But, this seems like it's more indicative of the kind of respect that Tyler is getting around the league. Do you think this is the new norm moving forward in terms of teams not just game planning for him, defending him the way that San Antonio did today, but also kind of just understanding this is one of the top scorers in the game?
To your point, I think we'll really know what this respect looks like, what level of respect is at if the coaches get him into the All-Star game as a reserve. At that point, we'll know. If he gets into the All-Star game, then that is the ultimate head nod. It's great. I think this is like having your defender have the way that defenses have guarded Tyler Herro is definitely a major head nod in that direction. JJ Redick, like, he doesn't say those things lightly. Like, he takes his post-game press conferences very seriously, maybe too seriously. But that's what I want. Okay, that's cool. Talk is cool. All that stuff is cool. Give him the real recognition. Give him the thing that he deserves. So we'll see.
And to your point, showing how he has to be able to show that he can respond. The counter to the counter, as Spo always likes to say. Now, all of a sudden, you're getting the kind of attention you wanted. How do you respond to that? And I think a lot of Heat fans are kind of expecting, and not just during the regular season, but also in the postseason. But that's a whole other conversation.
Give me the last 4 credit cookies quickly.
The last 4 credit cookies, they go to the rookie, Kel'el Ware.
Oh,
I gave the rest to him. None for Bam Adebayo. Again, leading scorer. He was the difference maker. He was the impact player. I think like Bam had a really quiet, solid game statistically, but also in terms of just his overall impact, it didn't feel like it was as great as what Ware was supposed to do. And maybe that's just more of what we'll see from Bam moving forward. Like, if this is in fact the kind of lineup that they're going to be rolling out regularly, Ware could get those kind of points. He is the kind of guy who could get points a little bit more easily because of his size, because of his skill set, especially when he's able to connect from 3-point range as he did today. And then Bam can just do all the dirty work. And he's probably happy as hell with that. So I think it might be what we see moving forward.
Yeah, I don't know that we want to completely lean into featuring Kel'el Ware on offense and expecting him to be a 20-point per game scorer, and Bam is just sort of this role-playing dirty work guy.
It's not even leaning into it. It's like, as a lob threat, it's like, he's there. Like, and Bam still got a couple lobs his way. The connection with Duncan was as strong as ever. But it's just, if you have to toss it to somebody who's 7'1" or 7'2", or versus somebody who's 6'9",
we've clearly seen that. We've clearly seen that the Heat ball handlers are much more comfortable lobbing it up to Ware than they are to Bam, right? And for obvious reasons, you just laid him out. But yeah, I think Bam gets. It feels funny to not give Bam the credit cookie there because he's part of that front court lineup that sparked the comeback and the win. So if you want to give him, like, maybe take 1 from Duncan, even though I do agree that 3 sounds about right, but we only have 10 to give out here, and those are the rules. So maybe we go 2 to Duncan and give 1 to Bam.
Not 1 from Ware and give 1 to Bam as the front court partner. I mean, they were both able to kind of benefit from each other. So I'm comfortable taking 1 from Ware.
That's fair. All right, so go. That's probably better.
3
to Ware, 1 to Bam. Duncan keeps 3. That's fair. I'm good with it. Love the credit cookies. Love that Kel'el Ware got. That is his biggest total so far this season, looking at the tracker here. So I do think that those 2 guys being able to feed off of each other, and Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson providing that important shooting from beyond the arc. Like it's those four that are sort of working simpatico. You know what I mean? Like they have to play off of each other. You need Tyler and Duncan's shooting to space the floor. You need Bam and Kel'el-Ware's size and their defense, not only because it's been helpful and it kind of creates this new matchup situation and the things that Spoelstra talked about defensively, but behind Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson, who just are a minus defensive backcourt, you want as much size and as much defense as possible behind them. And that's what you saw in this game. So big question though. Bam and Kel'el gave the Heat the jolt they needed. Did Erik Spoelstra wait too long to go to this lineup? We've got our listener questions coming up next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is so easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add a little excitement to the NFL playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show is to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. And as always, major shout out to our Locked On Heat Insider community. We're about to get to some of our listener questions here. You could sign up by using the link in the show notes. You get first dibs at asking these questions for the post-game shows. You also get reporting on the Jimmy Butler situation from us and from others, Mark Stein, Shams, anything that's been out there. You don't have to go digging through the internet to go find it. We just send it to you. When it happens, we just literally, hey, here's what happens. You do zero work. All you got to do, sign up, free for 14 days, goes to $4.99 a month. After that, you can cancel at any time with no sweat. But we really do think this is the time to get in. 2 weeks between now and the trade deadline. Now's the time to do it. Let's get to our listener questions, though. The first one comes from William, who writes in, Spo deserves some criticism for taking so long to make this happen in regards to the Kel'el-Ware, Bam, Adebayo frontcourt. David, do you agree?
I don't know. I kind of think so. Like I at first, I think you and I were both in agreement, especially earlier in the season when it was clear that Ware just wasn't ready. Like he looked out of place. He looked a step slow. He just wasn't strong enough. He wasn't ready. He had to spend time in Sioux Falls, and I think it was time that he needed in order to get just some kind of run, some practice at the game level in order to be able to continue to grow and develop. And to my point earlier, sometimes it just feels like a lost season. You've got nothing else. But this isn't a tanking team. This isn't a team that's looking to get into the lottery or anything like that. Not realistically. They're still competing for a playoff spot. And the Jimmy situation wasn't what it is now. You didn't necessarily see that it was going to be that there was going to have this dark cloud hanging over the team. And so they were kind of doing it slowly. I will say perhaps too slowly, but to suppose, what he said during that clip that you put out there, like they were kind of waiting and seeing what he did behind the scenes. So you have to trust that this coaching staff knows what they're doing, because I think they've been pretty good at evaluating talent and whether or not it works. And sometimes you kind of mess up and sometimes you miss out and you just don't necessarily make the right move at the right time. But I think maybe it was a tad too late, but I don't know that he necessarily should have been starting, let's say 10, 15 games ago, especially when you're embroiled at the very beginning of the whole Jimmy mess and before you go on the 6-game road trip. It was the right time. I think that was a big part of it too. Like the 6-game road trip, as I mentioned before, an opportunity to kind of just lock in. It's just about the team. We're on the road. It's us versus everybody. And you can kind of shift your mindset a little bit and the approach to the game. And I think that was a real good opportunity for Kel'el to get a little bit more playing time, some more minutes, not necessarily alongside Bam and Adebayo, but just get more comfortable and understand his role and let everybody else kind of figure out what to do with Ware. And you know what? It looked a lot easier. And I think that's why we're seeing it now. It's like, you know what? You put him out there with Bam or anybody else, it doesn't really matter. He's still going to be 7 feet tall. He's still going to catch lobs. He's still going to stretch the floor. He's still going to pull down rebounds. He's still going to be able to get blocks. It's a no-brainer, perhaps, and maybe it's something that
and
should have happened a little sooner, but it hasn't. You know, he wasn't ready for
That
it. I don't think
lob
he was
threat
ready.
thing wasn't there at the beginning of the year, right? Like he wasn't the
Yes.
timing on the pick and roll, the screening. That what was it that Kel'el was other than 7 feet tall in the first few weeks of the season, right? That was it. And so, yeah, he needed the seasoning. He needed to get better. He needed to mature. This is a guy who we considered and was even before the draft was labeled as raw, right? Like this was not a Victor Wembanyama, obviously. It wasn't even like a Zach Edey necessarily, the guy who was really polished and seasoned at the college level. It was a guy who was sort of like played 2 seasons, kind of gangly, kind of more abstract. We think he could shoot the 3. We're not really sure. Can he hold up defensively? We're not really sure. Can he rebound? We're not really sure. And he eventually earned those minutes and got his way onto the court. Funny enough that this happened literally at the midpoint of the season, the 41st game of the year. You know, it sort of feels like the right exact timing. Maybe a tad too late. And when I say a tad, the first time I really would have been like, this is probably the game where we got to do it, is the last game against Denver, against Nikola Jokic. We've seen what works against Jokic, right? 2 bigs, multiple bodies and size to guard him. And Jokic shredded Miami's defense in that game. They talked about it after the game, how they need to be better. And then you saw the adjustment. Erik Spoelstra was prepared in this game. I don't know that he was ready to start Kel'el and Bam Adebayo in the second half, but he was prepared to give that group more minutes. He hinted at it in his pregame media session. And so, yeah, I think that this is about the right timing for it. And I would rather be too late than too early, because Erik Spoelstra also said this: you don't want to go to it too early and it not work, because then you risk, okay, like, is this how we're going to start this rookie's career off? It kind of takes everybody else out of rhythm. Miami focused in training camp about being a 5-out offense. This is not a 5-out. This is the opposite of a 5-out offense. You got 3 non-floor spacers out there between Ware, Bam, and Jimmy Butler starting the second half. So you have to work your way up to it. So if you're a tad late on it, that's probably better than being early on it. And ultimately, the only thing that really matters is that it works. Would the Heat have been, if they went to this a month ago, 5 games over 500? I don't think so. You know, that doesn't feel like that would be the case. So we went to the poll on Twitter. I asked on the Locked On Heat Twitter account, better nickname for Kel'el and Bam Adebayo for that front court. We have the Bear lineup, B-A-R-E lineup, the Bear attack, Kabam, or other. 66% of you said Kabam was the best one. Our friend Jeremy Taché said Bear necessities should be in consideration. We've got Beware, which I don't know that I love that. We've got a lot of Wham. Isn't that the band from the 80s, 70s?
It is, yeah. George Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I love Wham necessarily. I kind of like Bear. Sounds fiercer than Wham. But that just might be my own personal bias. So that's the poll. What do you think?
I like Kabam. It's a play on. It's kind of like a play on Kaboom.
Right.
And I know he says that when Bam does hit those. Yeah, he does. When he says that when Bam hits those 3-pointers, but the Kabam lineup, you know, now with Kel'el and Bam out there, I like it. You know, it works.
Kind of like Bear attack. Like, okay, get ready for the Bear attack. It sounds menacing. It sounds big, right? Like it kind of sounds like what it is. But Kabam's good too. Kabam's also good. So
Beware is not bad.
The ultimate power here. I don't mind Beware. Beware is not bad. Jonah writes in, Haywood didn't play after a rough start to the game, so do you think he's phased out if Kel'el starts? I don't know that was the plan. I mean, so Haywood Highsmith started at power forward. Then obviously they go to that big lineup, and then Haywood didn't play in the second half. So that's I don't know. I don't think that that's the plan. I think they're going to always find minutes for Haywood.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to, right?
Yeah, he deserves it.
I don't know. I just, it seems like, you know, he's been kind of yanked in and out of the lineup, and he's just that guy, right? Like, you can do that. He's not the big money person. He's not the big name person. He's the one who has that kind of role that is so difficult to define. And as far as Spo is concerned, is the one that you could probably tinker with the most, because he's undersized. He's a perimeter defender. He's fantastic in that capacity, and he's been really good as a shooter as well. But unfortunately, you're going to face bigger lineups, and you're going to face bigger players, especially an elite player like Wembanyama, and you're going to need a little bit more. And so I don't know what that means for so let's project it out. Let's say you're going to continue to roll with the starting lineup moving forward. What we saw in the third quarter: Duncan and Tyler, Jimmy, Ware, and Bam, at least for the foreseeable future. Now, assuming that Jimmy gets traded, is Highsmith the natural lock to assume that role, or is it back to Hawkins kind of filling in ostensibly for Butler? I think that's one question mark.
Yeah, it could be either one of them, but regardless, I mean, whoever doesn't start gets the minutes off the bench, right? And so Haywood is clearly in there. But if you're not able to trade Jimmy Butler, I still think that there's minutes for Highsmith regardless. Like, they don't all have to be playing at small forward. Haywood could play. He could play at the 4. You know, that's possible. Now, they did always go with Bam and Kel'el, the Cleveland Cavaliers strategy that I've talked about before. It was always Bam or Kel'el on the court, even when one of them came out. So they didn't play with a backup center. And then Nico would kind of slide in there at that 4 spot. And I think that that's what they like him at, almost as sort of that 6th-man type of player. But there's going to be minutes for Haywood. There'll be minutes for Haywood. They'll find it. I don't think, to answer the question here, you've got the starting 5. You've got Nico, Jaime, Terry, and Haywood coming off the bench.
In theory, yes.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Speaking of Terry, Malachi writes in, do you all think that Terry Rozier could build upon this performance, or is he still a hit-or-miss type of player? I think he's still hit or miss. But, hey, bringing him off the bench, having Duncan Robinson start, no matter what with Duncan, you're getting the spacing. He doesn't even have to hit the shots. You have to guard him when he has the ball, when he doesn't have the ball. You're getting the spacing, and especially if you're going with the 2 big lineup now, you really need Duncan out there instead of Terry to start these games. But Terry Rozier coming off the bench as sort of your instant coffee scorer,
yeah,
that's what works for him. And today, he gave you that jolt. He was instant coffee. Sometimes he won't be that, and then you just lean back into Tyler, you lean back into Duncan, perhaps Jaime, Nico, some of these other guys. This is exactly what Terry Rozier needs to do. It's going to be hit or miss every once in a while, but when it hits, it can swing a game for you. And that's what you want out of your bench guys. You need your starters to be consistent. From the bench, you just want, hey, can you give us a spark once a week and kind of swing a game in our favor?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah. One of you has to step up, whether it's Jaime, whether it's Nico, whether it's Terry, you know, and it's worked. I mean, during the 3-game win streak recently, we saw that a lot of them were, and they were in the starting lineup because Jimmy's absence and stuff like that. But it was still, you were getting that kind of spark performance to kind of supplement what you were getting from Tyler Herro, and we saw that it's worked. Now it must be a little different. I'm curious to see what happens moving forward. This is an exciting time because now you've got this major change in the rotation. Does it work? Do we, you know, if it doesn't work in the next game against Portland, which I expect that it will, and I think you do too, do we trash the whole idea altogether? Do you kind of just ride through it and kind of just deal with it and kind of hope that they'll figure it out? It's going to be an interesting kind of you know, point, a measuring stick in the season to see whether or not Miami can continue to build off this. But
Thursday night, Milwaukee Bucks, TNT. You need size against Giannis and Brook Lopez. That could be the ultimate test for that front court if Erik Spoelstra does indeed stick with it. But for now, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.